So, Tony, I think it could be worth sharing a couple of highlights on the book we wrote, Revolutionizing Business Operations, particularly some of the stages of evolution in running business operations effectively, and open market rules. How do you operate with in a free market mindset and framework, and also perhaps unified accountability for what is typically fragmented organizations and processes.
Absolutely. What strikes me, Filippo, is when you and I were writing the book, Revolutionizing Business Operations, and we started to look for what was a logical point in our P&G career when it became very clear that this was about creating a new model of operations. And Filippo, the story I believe that we opened the book with is you coming back home after having delivered the world's largest outsourcing deal and yet feeling unhappy about it.
It was a strange sensation because on paper I should have felt most happy. It was a deal of $3 billion in value, the largest ever in IT outsourcing, very successful, lots of accolades in the industry. But I felt something was missing, and there was probably the inception of the intuition that we had to do something different. And that was what I realized is that as big as the change was, chances are was not final. We could have become obsolete and become a commodity. And so that is where the idea of creating an ongoing transformation came about. And of course, first and foremost, create the conditions through running our operations as a business to make that possible, to make that happen.
And the word that you use there, commodity, and the reverse of that, which is distinctiveness, is, I believe, an industry insight and a landmark. Because for most functional organizations, IT, finance, or even GBS, if the work that you do can be streamlined and structured so that it becomes repeatable, then the question then becomes, if the work is a commodity, shouldn't I just buy it from somebody else who can give it to me cheaper? This is a challenge that I think many GBS and IT organizations run into when they've done everything right, and then eventually they feel like, but I delivered everything that you wanted me, and now you're saying another vendor or somebody else can do it cheaper, so I'm no longer relevant. And the converse of that, which is if you keep redefining your role so you understand your relevance in the company and you move up the value chain so that you do higher order things, you give the commodity to others, and then you do higher order things. This was eventually the insight that came out of your introspection during that outsourcing journey.
It was this idea we developed of running as a business where it is not a monopoly. It is you need to earn the right to be better. And like for any business, where you cannot impose upon your clients, your customers, your consumers to buy your product. And same for us. If we truly operate as a business, is a dramatic, for the better, change in the mindset. Because at the point you have to create something compelling that is valuable, but at the same time communicate it effectively because you want people to know that the value they get. And that includes the whole sphere of the price, the value, the experience, the communications that go with it. So that was a big change. And the other was, Tony, if you can spend a couple of words on it, this end-to-end accountability, because we typically operate in silos. And there also we borrowed from the business model, the whole idea of running, brands and products end to end, although the brand manager, the product manager of any products in the marketplace doesn't necessarily have full control, right?
Absolutely. And the beauty of this is these two levers or drivers actually complement each other. The first one, which in the book we call the open market model, really forces you to kind of think in terms of you're not a monopoly. You have to earn the right to deliver value. And then the complementary piece is if you have to earn the right to do that, then you cannot act in a siloed manner. So the construct builds upon and extends the idea of end-to-end accountability, end-to-end process design, which has existed for a long time. So what that does is looks at restructuring a work process across many different functions. The challenge, Filippo, that you and I found with that was that it was one of those necessary but not sufficient conditions to operate effectively, because you could design a work process end to end, but then if the accountability for sub-processes was siloed, then the whole system really was sub-optimized, wasn't it? And so you needed an accountability element. And this accountability element was not accountability at a fuzzy departmental level. It had to be a person, a named individual. And so how do you find somebody who's going to be end-to-end accountable for a process that they may not control 100%? Which goes back to your business experience of actually having run a business, where you found that, contrary to belief, most general managers don't control everything. They don't control all of their suppliers. They don't control their logistics. They don't control what happens in the geopolitical world. They don't control what their competition does. And yet they're held accountable for market share. And so that concept, when you apply that to internal functions, becomes an incredible, powerful model.
And the beauty is that it's a double twist. On one hand, this way, we not only speak the language of the business, but we operate as business people, and this is so incredibly powerful in our collaboration, in our interaction with our business partners. Secondly, becomes much more clear and compelling what people are in charge of. So there is no confusion on responsibilities, on accountabilities. So it becomes truly an interesting win-win for all involved.